All right, what's up, everyone? It is April 6th, 2021. A few months back, about 6 months ago, I made a Nekroz deck profile. I played the deck in 2015. I had just, after it came off the ban list, or came off to full power, I should say, became interested in it again, and I rebuilt it, and I had some theories from the olden days, and I kind of mixed it with some new stuff, but I have optimized that strategy a little bit more for the current meta and to make the deck as playable as possible, keeping in mind that it is an older strategy, so it is from a time where decks weren't as consistent or as powerful as they are today, which is fine. But I'm bringing a deck profile here now of, I think, what is a very viable way to play the deck in the current time, and I'm just gonna basically talk out through that, give a deck profile on what I'm doing here. So to start off, one clauseless. When last I made this profile, I played two. However, I've made some changes to the core structure of the deck. I feel like one is enough. Two is advisable, or it could be arguable that that is the correct number to play, because oftentimes if you resolve a Shuret mid to late game, then you'll want, or at least mid game, you'll want to search a clauseless off of it so that the clauseless can get you a ritual spell. But you just don't have the room in the deck to do that anymore, because you have to play so many cards to keep this deck up to pace with current meta tier decks. So you just have to play the one. The one is enough. It's fine. And yeah, triple unicorn, self-explanatory. Nothing to say here. It's kind of like the lifeline of the deck. It lets you make your rank 4 plays. It's a skill drain on legs for extra deck monsters. It's an extra copy of in the hand, it's an extra copy of every Nekroz card in your graveyard. So yeah, nothing else to say. If this card is not at like 3, you really just don't want to play the deck. Triple Brio, it's just an extra copy of every Nekroz card in your deck. So every copy of card in your deck, every copy of card in your grave. It's just self-explanatory. Honestly, its main use is basically just searching out Shuret. You never really summon this. You never really want to summon it, but it gets you to Shuret, and that's what's really most important. Obviously, it can search like other things as well, but getting to Shuret is probably its most important function. 2 Valk. This card, I tried playing it 1, and I was completely wrong for that. This card is honestly insane, because obviously it protects your board. It protects whatever you put up turn 1, but also, and keeps you from dying as well. But the fact that you summon it back, you cycle it back, and then it's huge monster to punch over problem monsters, and then you just tribute yourself away, send a Jew away or something on your board you no longer need. To just draw cards is actually super important, because this deck is very consistent turn 1. That's one of its strengths, but past that, it falls behind in card economy so fast, because at the end of the day, it is a ritual deck, meaning that it needs a ritual monster, a tribute, and a ritual spell just to summon one monster. Now, there's obviously ways to mitigate that built into the strategy, but the fact that this just lets you turn your dead cards into essentially a pot of greed is really important for the deck. So this card is nuts. You have to play Valk. 3 is probably too cloggy. But you could actually make the argument that if you know you're going first, you could play 3, because you just want to see one in your hand to protect your board, regardless. And then obviously if you protect your board, you can cycle it back the following turn to summon it, and then draw off of it. We play the one Trish and the one Decisive Armor. I think the one Trish is standard. Playing 2 is incorrect. It's too cloggy. But playing 1 is perfect. Playing 1 Decisive Armor is probably not standard at all, if there is even a standard for this deck, because it's rogue at this point. But I feel like Decisive Armor is very important, because, again, like I said last time, there's just a threshold in the deck. But outside of Valk, the cards you're usually seeing the most are these 7 right here, and they all have a 2300 threshold, whether that be attack or defense. So outside of Valk being at 2900, they just don't have much firepower in the deck. And so having the fact that it's 3300, which makes it too big for Dogmatic, a punishment most of the time. The fact that it's big enough to punch over pretty much anything you're going to deal with outside of maybe UCT or the Golden Lord after he uses his effect to pump himself up. The fact that he has the honest effect to protect your Unicorn while technically removing a card in the damage step your opponent's attacking Unicorn with, and the fact that he pressures back row because he can just target a set card and banish it is really good for the deck. It's like a good one of to just have for punching and killing when the game and you have the chance in the game. And that's the big thing with Nekroz is like with these two cards right here, summoning them, creating an opening with their just with their effects, and then just punching for the game when you can. Plus there's an OTK with him, or an OTK that only he enables. So yeah, and then we play Triple Shurret. That's self-explanatory. Dude, I do not understand why people are cutting copies of this card. Like, if you want to play 2, I can at least see the argument of it. And if you think that 3 is cloggy, I can see that argument as well. But people playing 1 is just asinine to me, because if you play 1, this is a ritual deck. You have to, essentially the way you want to play this deck is have this in hand, cycle something from grave with this in hand, and then get your search off of this, and then like banish it from grave with mirror, right? So that's 2 summons off of 1 Shurret. Well, if you only have 1 Shurret, then what the fuck are you summoning your other cards with? Right? And you could play the incantation build, but you have to hope the levels match up. Why would you do that? Just play this. It's the full tribute, and it searches you a Brio, or a Clauseless, or a Trish, or when a Reed Bear comes out in like a week or 2, it searches that. Why in God's name would you not play like max copies of this? This is absolutely paramount. Without this card, you just cannot play. You cannot play it. Please max out this card, or at least play 2. But I think 3 is correct. I want to see this in every single hand. All right, enough for the Nekroz monsters. That's all of them. Monsters that are not Nekroz based. So previously when I made this deck profile, I added this card, or I stated I play this card, as I obviously continue to do. And I stated that this is the only Dogmatica card that plays into the Nekroz engine, which is technically true. Because this card will let you send your Herald or your Totally Awesome, and it will let you recur your actual Nekroz strategy by Toad adding a water monster from grave to hand, which they're obviously all waters. And Herald will search you a ritual spell or monster, and that helps your actual Nekroz strategy. But since then, I've had the realization this card is actually important for the strategy too as well. Not by itself. Obviously, it's basically just a way to search the trap. But the trap is important in that since like when I made this profile 6 months ago, Totally Awesome was at 1, I believe, and like the trap basically adds you value, right? If you send in a Tis off the trap, well then you get 2 removals, and that's fine, but that does nothing for the Nekroz strategy. But if you send Totally Awesome off the trap, well then you get a removal and you get to add a card to your own strategy. From the Nekroz strategy. It actually adds to your Nekroz strategy while being interruption, removal, etc., and a blatant +1. So the fact that this actually searches the trap is important for the strategy, because it via the trap it adds cards to your strategy. And also like going first, like having this and like summoning it allows you to search your trap and then have like an extra interruption, because otherwise the boards you put up without the trap are just not that impressive. When a Reed Bear, however you pronounce his name, when he comes out, it'll be a little bit different. But right now, one of the best boards you can do without the trap is basically like either Clauseless Unicorn, which is sort of redundant, or like Dweller Unicorn or Dweller Clauseless, and that's still like not that powerful, especially considering that like Droplet's a card, Impermanence is a card, things like that. So like having this be able to get you the trap, which is extra interruption, and it plays in your own strategy, is really important. So we play both these cards, just one of each, because Nadir Servant searches them, so no need to play anything more. I don't play Fleur-de-Lis, even though it's not a bad card per se. I just don't want to play that card in this strategy, because these cards do things on their standalone. Fleur-de-Lis is not. And then we just play some Jews. Same as last time, but just play some Jews. Let you make rank 4s. That lets you just, you don't have to, like the incantations, you have to like reveal something else and summon something. I just want to like normal summon, get a search, and that's that. They have a board presence, and then when you're done with them, you just tribute them off to draw with Valk. So yeah, that's it for the monsters. Spells. This is where the change in the deck is made from last time. 1 Mirror, 1 Kaleidoscope, and 2 Cycle. I cut 1 Kaleidoscope because I realized that like pretty much every first turn, you're resolving these two spells. This to summon Unicorn and get a search off a Herald, and then this to cycle back like a Clauseless, or when a Reed Bear comes out, like summon a Reed Bear. But like you're never summoning this turn one, and you're never using two of these in one turn because you can't legally do that. But what I noticed is that if I had Prep of Right, I was always adding this back off the grave, like right, because the Prep would search your Trish, and your Trish would get like your Shurret or your missing piece, and then like, but when you Prep right, you add this back, and so like you didn't need a second copy in deck because like right off the bat in the first turn, you're getting it back anyway. And like the argument is, okay, well you want to have an extra one in grave because if you banish it to search, then you don't have another copy of it. It's like, yeah, but if I'm getting it back in my first turn off of Prep, then like it doesn't matter. Like it essentially, the second copy never comes up, which playing only one is really good in for a lot of reasons. One is because you only ever summon Unicorn like once anyways. You only summon it like turn one. So if you're going second, you can like lock down a board of extra deck monsters or make a rank 4 play, or both, not necessarily in that order. And then if you're going first, you just summon the Unicorn once, and after that you don't really play the Unicorn. It's kind of like a going first towers card, and like you sit on it as long as you can, or if you make a rank 4, and then you just push with your other bigger monsters. Like you don't summon it more than once. You don't need to, and if you do need to summon it more than once, there's so many ways to recur this card between Totally Awesome, Preparation Rites, and extra copies of Unicorn in your deck that like it's just super easy to recur. Plus, playing only one of this, really playing 4 spells, really allows you to justify even more so just playing the single, oh, not that card, playing the single Clauseless. So it's just a deck building choice. It gives me just as much consistency with less clogginess, and the ability to place 2 more cards in my deck that I think allow me to play in this format a lot better. So that's the Writ spells, and then we play Triple Servant. I don't really have a reason to explain this card. I mean, it's self-explanatory. It's like at best it's like a +1, or I'm sorry, at worst it's like a +1 at best, or at worst I guess it gets ashed, but at best it's like a +2 to 3, and like this deck needs a lot of that because it falls behind again after like turn 1. So like you activate it and you get like some value out of the card you send, and then you search Maximus, so you've already +1, and you summon Maximus, and Maximus will get you like a removal and a search, or it's incredibly important. Like what Servant does. I don't need to explain it, but it's incredibly important in this strategy. So yeah, triple prep. Again, blatant +1, really good. Let you recycle your spells. Let you search basically just Brio. Again, Brio is every copy of card in your deck, which this gets, or Unicorn, which is every copy of Nekroz card in your grave, which this also gets. So incredibly important card, and it recycles your Writ spells. And then we play 1 Rhoda, which is basically just an extra copy of Shurret because it's that important to see Shurret. It's an extra copy of Clauseless too, and ergo your Writ spells, but it's really just an extra copy of Shurret because the only other card in the deck that can search Shurret is Brio. And like sometimes like you want to search like a Valk with Brio or your Decisive Armor because you need those cards in that moment. Or like a Unicorn turn 1. So being able to search Brio is really important because it's just the 4th copy. And then like once you like have Brio, then like once you search Shurret, then Shurret leads to Brio, leads to Shurret, and like you have like your engines going. So yeah, really important. And then we play Triple Tax Talent. It came to the realization that like this deck can play through like Ash. Like it can play through like a single Ash, things like that, but like it just struggles like going like if it has to deal with like more than like 1 hand trap, it's just kind of done, right? And so like this lets you play through hand traps like a lot better going first, obviously, because you get to like draw a card or draw 2 cards. Basically, you get a Pot of Greed if you get ashed. So you come out on top, or if they droll unlock you, you're pretty near damned. So if they droll you, then you can at least like take a card out of their hand and shove it back into the deck, and then force them to play the next turn with only 4 cards, which is still probably enough to lose. There's no solution to droll right now that's that acceptable because we don't have what's that new spell that basically the replacement for Call by the Grave? Designator, cross out Designator, I think is what it is. We don't have that yet, so we just have to play what we have. And this card is perfectly acceptable. Going second is just as fun as well. Going into an established board, if anything activate any kind of monster effect or hand trap, you can draw 2 cards, take apart their board, etc. So obviously, very good card. And then we play 1 called again, just a generically good card in general. especially in this format. Everything is like grave grave based, but so this is very, very good. But also, you know, it outs, you know, hand traps. And then that's it for the spells. Again, finally play Triple Trap. And this card is so, I love seeing this card in my hand. Obviously, like, again, because it lets me interrupt my opponent and deal with, you know, monster threats that I otherwise wouldn't be able to deal with. And it's interruption, very important interruption. And then also, again, like, at best, it's a Fire Lake. So it's a +1 in that sense. And then at worst, it's like I send Toad, and then I pop a monster, and then Toad will add back something from my grave to my hand. So very, very good card. 10 out of 10 would recommend. All right, that's it for the main deck. 40 cards exactly. Extra deck. Now this can vary. You know, this deck is very much tailored to my own liking. I do not net deck, but this is what I play. So I play one Blossom because, like, going first, if you draw like a 1-up that you don't want in your hand, like, you know, a Decisive Armor, Trish, Mirror, or just like an extra copy of it, like a Jew, multiple Jews, or like multiple shirts, something like that, you can just, like, this lets you have like a 1-card mulligan, lets you draw a card and like put 1 card back, because like it's something you don't care about this card, you just dump it off a servant, and then, you know, get the mulligan, and then you banish off a Maximus, and that's fine. So that's really its only purpose is basically just to be a mulligan when you see servant going first. Triple Herald, no explanation needed there. It's a Kaleidoscope target. You keep sending it off of Maximus for value. That's obvious, don't need to explain. One Omega, just recycle cards in your graveyard, or, you know, take cards out of your opponent's graveyard you don't want there. Obvious, you know, effect, I don't need to explain that. Double Tis, just removal, duh, Kaleidoscope target. 1 Fossil Warrior Skull Knight. Like, this is so good. Like, if you go first with and like you're trying to resolve Maximus, well, not, when you resolve Maximus, like, I'll send these two, and like if they try to be cute and do like the Nova Macabre play, it's like, okay, well, I'm just gonna go ahead and banish this from my grave turn 1 as a trigger effect, and then just pop your ignition effect. You pop the Macabre, and you, like, they can respond to it. They can like pitch a monster from their hand and negate it and keep the Macabre on board. It's like, okay, that's fine, but I'm summoning a Unicorn and or a Clauseless this turn, so like the card basically becomes pointless on field. So like being able to send this as like turn 1 is just, and like if they try to get cute, it's good. If they don't, even if they don't send it, then you just have this engraved for any time later in the duel that you possibly need it. 2 Toad, self-explanatory, recycles your stuff. Yeah, just recycles your blue boys. So that's awesome. That's all it is. And then these are all the non-summonable extra deck targets. Summonable ones, Dweller, 1 Dweller. This card is just absolutely busted this format. Just making this first going blindly is usually pretty good. It's hard for me to think of a deck that really just does not affect at all. It's pretty lackluster for the most part against dinos, but this deck has a really bad matchup against that deck anyway. It has some effect, right, against the babies, but really it doesn't do that much. But other than that, it's a really good like turn 1 like card to make. And like if you make this first and then you summon Maximus and like you activate Maximus, you can like chain this. So like anything they send to the grave just doesn't get its, like, they don't get value off of trying to resolve it. And then fun fact is that there's usually a Unicorn under this, so by its own effect it will boost up itself and all of my water boys by 500. So that's pretty cool, little nifty thing there. Then I play 101 Silent Honor Arc. I kind of want to play, I don't really know what to play in this slot. I'm not entirely sure, but this is a card that lets me deal with, in a sense, the threat of Golden Lord, because Golden Lord can't be destroyed by battle or card effects when it's boosted up by its own effect. But this will let me suck it up, and also it's no longer in the grave. It's attached to this card and not in the grave. So that's one little helpful thing against that matchup, because again, that's a tough matchup. Eldritch and Dinos are probably the hardest matchups for Nekroz right now. But yeah. And then we play 1 Tornado Dragon, just for traps, obviously. 1 Baguska. This is for dinos. This is honestly just for dinos, because there's really nothing else I have in like all of my strategy going first that really affects them, just because Miscellaneous Swords, for some god-forsaken reason, is still at 3. And it stops all activated effects. And this is not an activated effect. It just says no. So unless they out this, then Baguska is my solution to that deck. And finally, we play 1 Zeus / Sky Thunder, whatever. Yeah, this is obviously just to put on any, you know, rank 4 that's been used up. But also, like, even if there's not enough material in here for its board wipe effect to be relevant, the fact that like I can just sit on it and like have this 3K beater on the board, and they have to kind of like deal with this first, because if they don't deal with this first, like destroy something else on my board, well then his effect to attach something from my extra deck to him comes into play, like a Toad, a Tis, Herald, something like that, that plays into my own strategy. So that's an interesting and nifty little bit from Zeus. So yeah, then side deck. This is tailored to the current meta, so this would obviously change over time. But I play one Cowboy, just because like the time rules have changed in the past like year, 2 years. I hate them. I genuinely hate the time rules. I think they encourage sliminess, they encourage griminess, they encourage cheating, or not cheating, but they encourage slow play, and they basically encourage bad sportsman like conduct. And if we're all Yu-Gi-Oh players, we understand that Yu-Gi-Oh players are inherently scumbags, generally speaking. And I know you can make the argument, okay, well, aren't you just trying to cheese them out of a win in time as well? It's like, it's really not that I'm trying to cheese a win. It's just that, like, if you're going to slow play me and we're going to go to time inevitably, then I'm going to side this in, because I'm not going to lose in time because you tried to, you know, cheese me out of a game. That's kind of ridiculous to me. So I'm going to side this in and, you know, hopefully make you pay for being a douchebag. So one Cowboy, one Pankratops, just obvious, good going second card. The fact that it helps, it's a monster or a spell and trap like removal, or it could actually be a monster and a spell and trap removal, depending on how you know play the turn. Triple Dark Ruler No More, triple Droplet. These are all basically just like going second into the kind of boards that we typically see, like, you know, Dragon Link. All this aims to deal with that. Any board like the Raid Raptor / Phantom Knight board, that is usually pretty impressive. This helps deal with that. You know, just generic, any board that sets up as a crap load of negates interruption, this just says no. I don't like playing those kind of games. And then we play one Duster, triple Cosmic Cyclone. So these are just my 4 little back row removal, and then coupled with Pankratops. Technically 5, potentially. But yeah, I just don't want to deal with back row. Kind of lame. And then finally, we play some Spice. We play triple copy of White Howling. This card is like really spicy, and you play it in most decks. So if you don't know what this card does, if you control a water monster, which Nekroz typically does, you can target one spell in your opponent's graveyard, banish it, and for the rest of this turn, negate all effects of spells on your opponent's field. So that's pretty friggin' nuts. In the Sky Striker matchup, this card is obviously just amazing. It lets all your shit resolve. They can Widow Anchor you, but you can just say no to their whole board, or their whole back row anyway, while banishing a spell from the graveyard, which is awesome. You can turn off Mystic Mind with this. You can chain it to like Invocation, Shit All spells. You can chain it to Drytron spells. If you happen to play a Mirror, which would just be pretty fun, to be honest, at this point, you can activate this and just turn off all spells. So it's a really cool it's a really cool card for this deck. You just flip it up and just say no to your spells. You get to get rid of one of those spells that typically recurs itself, and then just say no to any spell pressure they could add to you this turn. So it's a really cool card for this deck. I think that if you play Nekroz by some stretch of the imagination, if you are still playing Nekroz in 2021, please pick up a place of these cards, because they are really good this format, in my opinion. And that's it. That's my deck profile. I appreciate anyone who takes time to watch this. Feel free to comment. Let me know what choices are wrong, what choices you think are poorly calibrated, what choices you think are nice, what you think is interesting. Anything you'd like to comment on, even if it's just my thought processes on my card selections, please feel free to let me know. I am more than welcome. I am more than open to and welcome criticism, even if it's not necessarily constructive. All right, appreciate everyone watching. Peace.